What's up? How y'all doing? As you can see from the thumbnail, today we're going to be changing out the CP3 on my Cummins. It's an 04 3500 5.9. So I'm going to show you all the parts and tools that you will need in order to do this swap. And I'm going to try to make it as simple and as detailed as possible. So if it helps you out, make sure you hit that like, that subscribe, and continue coming back. All right, here we go. All right, so don't mind the no bumper, no grill, and stuff like that. I currently have that stuff off, still drying, and that video will be coming out shortly after this one. So I wanted to change out the CP3 before I put those, like all the plastics on the bumper and the bumper back on, so it could be easier, you know, so that I don't like scratch the paint with the ladder or whatever I use, bucket or whatnot. So I'm gonna go over the parts that you will need. So right here we have a 27 millimeter deep socket with a 1/2 inch drive ratchet. I have a 13 millimeter. That's going to be for the 3 bolts that actually hold the CP3 on. 3/8 inch drive little ratchet, and also picked up this industrial injection billet CP3 access cover, and that's a 3/8 inch drive ratchet. But I just did that just because the plastic ones, they are prone to cracking if you tighten them down too tight, and so you have to wait for another one or try and source another one elsewhere. I have my 2 magnets, and I will explain why I feel that I need the 2 magnets later. Next, we have the CP3 gear puller. Now, you don't need this, but it'll be very, very, very helpful, and I'll explain later why. Right here, I have my 7/8 inch wrench, and this is for the fitting coming from a fast 165 that goes into the CP3. And then on the left side is a 3/4 wrench, and that one goes, I forgot if it's I want to say it's the return. If you can see that right there, it's going to be this one. Let me move this out the way. It's going to be that fitting right there. I don't know if that's the return or the supply, or not the, well, yeah, the supply to the rail. It goes underneath there to the bottom. So I want to say that's the supply line. So my 7/8 wrench is going to go on this fitting. And then I'm going to need one more wrench for this. I want to say that's the return line. Yeah. That's the return, because that goes to the back of the fuel filter housing right there. So unbox the CP3, and this is a diesel auto power 10 mil CP3. I didn't want to go duals because I don't know, I wanted a single pump, and this should support what my goal is, which is 750 horsepower. So I'm gonna unwrap this. That's cool how it comes with like a PVC pipe to connect or to protect the little FCA connector. This is what your CP3 is going to look like. It has an O-ring right there. That's the shaft, the threads. So yeah, so another thing, make sure when you're doing this install, make sure you're clean the whole entire process. We're talking about fuel here, so You don't want to have any dirt, debris, or anything fall in your fuel line, your CP3, or your supply line to the rail. You want to make sure you're clean as possible, because you get any dirt, debris, now you're talking about you're contaminating your fuel rail, which can lead to injectors getting, like, you know, stuck or make them fail. So it's a lot of things that can go wrong if you're not clean. All right, so the first step would that I'm going to do is I'm going to take off that plastic cover. That's where your 3/8 inch drive ratchet is going to go. Obviously just loosen that. I took off my belt just so that y'all can see it better. So that's your power steering pump pulley, and then your CP3 access cover. All right, so now that I have that off, since I'm going to be using the industrial injection billet cover, I'm going to remove this O-ring. As you can see, I already got it started. This is a small flathead, and you want to be very careful, but I mean, you're gonna have to dig in there and then pull up the O-ring. So just like that, got it out. Now I'm gonna put it in there. Make sure it's seated. You see it's sticking up on that side, so just go around it. Make sure it's fully seated. A couple times, just double check. So boom, that step is done. Okay, next. That nut, which is that 27mm I mentioned earlier, and then there's a washer behind it. So I'm going to break that nut loose, and since my truck is a manual, I have it in first right now, so the engine should not turn while I'm trying to loosen the nut. If yours is automatic and it turns a little bit, get somebody to get on the harmonic balancer bolts down there, which is 15mm, I believe, and get them to hold it while you loosen that CP3 nut. So while I was trying to turn the CP3 nut, you can see the engine is also turning over, even with it in first. So since I'm by myself, I'm either gonna wait to get somebody to hold this, the 15mm that's on the balancer bolts, or I might try and do it myself right quick. All right, so I was able to break the nut loose. I believe it's like torqued down to 77 foot-pounds, so it's not like hard, but you definitely have to hold the balancer bolts. And I was able to do it by myself by just putting one hand here, pushing towards the passenger side, and have my 1/2 inch breaker bar pulling to the driver's side, and it broke loose. I had two 15mm ratchets like this. That way it wasn't just on one bolt, and I was really holding both. So I was able to break it loose like that by myself. So this is the part that you're gonna have to be very careful with. If you can see that, the front case is like right in that angle. You can drop the nut, I believe, down in the bottom of the front case, and you can also drop that washer. So after you break it loose, make sure you be very careful not to drop that nut and that washer down in there, or you're gonna have some bigger problems. God forbid I drop it down there. All right, so the goal is with your magnet to put it in the center of the CP3 shaft. Hold that with one hand while you unscrew the nut. That way it's like it's an added protection, so you don't drop that nut down in there. I wouldn't say it couldn't happen, but it kind of helps it. Like if you don't have a good grip, it'll fall on the magnet. But make sure you're holding the magnet, and and it's not just like hanging like that. So I hope y'all saw that process. Nice and easy. Okay, so I'm gonna take this, put it in the center. Bring my other hand, hold the center, just like that. I hope y'all saw that. Man, I hope y'all saw that. All right, so we have the nut, and it looks, I don't know if that's cracked. Is that supposed to be like that or what? Or is that supposed to be like a lock washer? I'm not sure. All right, I'm sweating bullets because I was just so nervous about not dropping the nut and the washer and the front case. I hope y'all saw like what I did. Hopefully the camera caught it. If it didn't, I apologize. But you'll get it once you get there to that point. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to loosen all the fittings, loosen the 13 millimeter bolts on the back, and we're going to go to the next step. Right, so next I'm going to loosen my fast fitting. As you can see, this hard line right there, that was the factory one. I just moved it out the way just in case I had any problems with my fast and I needed to hook back up my factory fuel pump. I was going to be able to use that factory supply line. So if you don't have like an aftermarket lift pump, it'll probably be that the same size banjo bolt fitting for this one. All right, so since when I loosened that fast fitting, the fitting on the CP3 actually started turning. So I'm gonna put my 3/4 wrench on the bottom to hold it, put my 7/8 on the top. All right, so next I have a 17 millimeter socket to get on that return banjo bolt, get that loose, and then I'm going to move over to the supply fitting over there, which is that 3/4 wrench. Remember what I said in the beginning about being clean. Now this port right here is open, you know, right there on the side. You can get contamination in that fitting right here, you know, but just by moving stuff around, loosening stuff. I probably should have took that connector, the FCA connector, off, just in case like my wrench slipped or something slipped and I hit that and like basically like break it or anything. I probably should have took that off first so that wouldn't be in the forecast or anything. But just be careful, take your time. It's nothing to rush. It's pretty straightforward. It's not hard at all. Next, come down there at the bottom of your rail, just follow that line, and you can use the same 3/4 wrench, loosen that fitting. You're gonna take off that line, and the reason being, when you go to pull off your pump, if you still have that fitting tight, then it's gonna like bend that line. That line needs to get removed completely out the way. The CP3 is gonna come back, so it's gonna need room and nothing interfering. So another tip, once you are ready to loosen that nut, make sure you get a towel. Your rail is probably gonna, more than likely is gonna have fuel in it, and once you loosen it and take off the line, it's probably gonna just drain all down, all on your wires, and you don't really want that. And get a bucket underneath the truck. All right, so once you get that line taken out, next there's only 2 things left. Well, really 3, but if you're gonna use the method that I'm using, it's 3. So the next thing is to remove this connector right there and undo the 3 13mm bolts. If anything, make sure you record everything before you pull it apart. So for instance, this electrical connector, if you watch Greg A video on like how he did his CP3 install, there is a way to incorrectly put that plug back onto the FCA and it'll probably not work. Well, the CP3 will work, but something with the signal will probably be wrong. So make sure you just record before you pull it off, so that way you know which way it went and you can put it back on the same way. All right, so that connector it's a little booger to get off. This is the way mine came off, so with that little push tab on the side, and it went in just like that. So just in case you didn't record or you didn't see it, so it goes like that, obviously in there like that. Push that little tab down and pull. I had a little struggle, so I just grabbed a little small screwdriver and helped. I didn't rely on the screwdriver fully to get the connector off. I squeezed and I pulled it, but I just kind of used it a little bit around the edge and it came off. All right, so you might ask, where are those 3 13mm studs? So you have one right there, which I already took off. You have another one right there. I use a deep fan wall swivel to an extension to get that one. So in reference is like right there. And then it's one on the bottom. And then the last 13mm is right there under the CP3. And if you see that leak over there, it's not a Cummins if it's not leaking, if you know what I mean. Right there. So that's that. Okay, so that last 13mm bolt is right there underneath the CP3, and I'm using a ratchet wrench to get it off. See that? Bottom of the CP3. All right, so at this point, everything should be disconnected. All the bolts should be loose. The front bolt should be loose. So if you don't have that CP3 gear puller, then it's probably, depending on how new the truck is, it's probably going to be hard. And what a lot of people do is they'll take a flathead screwdriver and like use the crank case to pry the CP3 back, because all you're doing is really you're taking the CP3 and pulling it out the gear, and I'm gonna show you that. So that's why I bought this gear puller, so I don't be prying. There's 2 bolts that you screw into the front gear. There's 2 threads. Sorry for the trash truck. But there's 2 gears. You screw this in, and it's gonna push this. Well, let me open it, but it's gonna push this. It's gonna push the whole CP3 back as you tighten the bolts down. All right, so it just so happened I just gave it a test try, not by using a flathead screwdriver and trying to pry it, but literally taking both hands, getting on the CP3 on the top and the bottom, and literally just jiggling it. So like moving it like this and trying to slide it backwards at the same time. And you can see that little small gap in between there. is starting to come out. It wasn't stuck. So I just wanted to have that gear puller as like a last resort. I saw like a bunch of other videos where they use a screwdriver or simply the mounting studs were weak. And you know, if you use a screwdriver, you're gonna put more pressure on one side than the other, unless you're using 3 screwdrivers, which requires another hand. You're making it susceptible for one of these studs to break off. So I'm going to just keep wiggling and pulling the CP3 back out. All right, so it got to the point where I couldn't move it back anymore by hand. So now I'm going to use that gear puller. So y'all see those 2 holes with threads in them? That's where these 2 bolts thread in. This flat piece is going to push on that shaft right there. As you tighten them half turn by half turn on each bolt, what should happen is that CP3 should slowly just keep coming out. All right, so the way I'm going to do it is I put that in there. It's not going to obviously fall through because they designed it to where you can put it in the hole without it falling down into the front case. So then I'm going to take a bolt, slide it around until I find the hole, and thread both of the bolts in. So what I did was I tightened down both evenly, right? And I heard something go pop. It made a pop noise. I was like, damn, did I just like either break the bolt in the threads, or did something just break, or what happened? I don't know. You know, this is my first time doing this, but so the gear is loose right now. But the thing is, the CP3 is also loose. So if y'all can see that, I'm pulling it back with one hand. Now, let me get a different grip. Let me see if I can get it from here. I'm trying to show y'all and do it at the same time. Hold on. You could probably use a screwdriver right there, but I just don't. I'm against using a screwdriver. I just refuse. So I'm gonna use both hands to pull this thing out, and I'll show y'all afterwards. So out she comes. I'm getting hung on a few things. There she is. Let me go set it over here on the table so y'all can see. All right, there she goes. Ooh, look a little greasy, slimy, oily. All right, so that's the old CP3. So if you notice on the new one, let me put these side by side. Well, this isn't the new one. This is technically remanufactured. All right, so what we have here, I need to undo this fitting to put on the new remanufactured pump. I need to take out this plug, which that's where the return goes. Okay, so it already has the fitting right there, so I would just need to connect. This is the supply to the rail. What else? I believe that's all. I'm gonna lube up that O-ring with some oil, so y'all can see. Yeah, so man, I want to say that tool, it really did help out a lot. This tool. Hopefully I can get that part number. XDP gear puller. Those 2 bolts. All right, so as you can see, I have all the parts laid out that I took off. I'm going to clean them with some brake clean, like that fitting. The banjo bolt, see, that's pretty nasty. The outside is pretty nasty. Like I said, being clean is very important. So I'm going to brake clean that real good, clean it up, and then I'm going to go ahead and clean up the fittings, swap them over, and I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the new pump. All right, guys, so I just sprayed non-chlorinated O'Reilly brakes part cleaner. I just literally sprayed it. I didn't do any scrubbing. I didn't do no rubbing. I sprayed it and all the dirt and debris came right off. Oh yes, one thing to note, on the bottom of that fitting, be careful. It's a metal like O-ring on there, so just be careful of all your fittings. Like this one, this little washer, make sure that you don't, when you're taking out this bolt, it doesn't fall off and you don't see it. So that's that. I'm just gonna oil this O-ring and then throw it back in. Well, first I'm letting all the brakes part cleaner evaporate and everything dry before I go ahead and put the stuff back on. All right, so I'm just having a little trouble putting this CP3, getting it pressed back into the gear. As you can see, now I'm skeptical of putting the washer on and putting that nut on and using the threads to pull it back in. I want to try and push the back of the pump as much as I can without having to like pull on threads or anything. You know, I really don't want to strip the threads. That would be a bad day. I don't want to use really the back of the 3 mounting studs to pull it in. I don't know. Once I figure it out, I'll let y'all know. This is something that I don't see most people show, like this part. Maybe just because it's just like so hard to install, but I'll definitely let y'all know. All right, guys, so move this light out the way. I figured it out. What I did was I put that nut, the CP3 nut, I put it on. I made sure there were enough threads from the CP3 sticking out. I put the nut on carefully with that ice pick in the center of the shaft. Then I slid my nut, I threaded it on by hand, I put the socket on, and literally now I'm just turning the socket, and it's coming in. I don't know if y'all can see that. CP3 is coming in. Now the thing is, I didn't put the washer on and then the nut. I didn't do that. I just put the nut on just so I could pull the CP3 in. All right, so it got tight on me. It got tight on me right there. I can't turn it no more by hand. So now what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to loosen this nut once again, put that washer on, and then put the nut back on. Now that the threads are showing, I'm probably going to use those nuts to finish it the rest of the way. So y'all see how I'm putting my pick in the center of the shaft? Okay, y'all can see now better. So now I'm holding that with one hand. I'm gonna come with another finger or another hand in there and literally unscrew that nut, but I can't do it because I have too much going on right now. I got the phone in the way. I'm holding this pick with one hand, so I'm going to move the camera, but y'all get the idea. All right, so it's off just like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same pick, put the washer on. That looks like a lock washer to me, unless that thing broke. I'm not sure. So I'm gonna put it in the center of the shaft, and then I'm gonna hold it firm with one hand, take the other hand and screw the nut on the threads, just like that. Yo, so I just got all three nuts on the back of the CP3 tightened down. Now I'm going to move to the front nut that's holding the actual like CP3 onto the gear. The torque spec for the three back nuts is 71 inch-pounds. So you tighten those down first to 71 inch-pounds. Then you come to the nut to 77 pound-feet. So after I torque this down, that nut, the big nut on the front, down to 77 pound-feet, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna double check those just in case it pulls the CP3 up a little bit forward. That way I can just double check. After I double check those three, then I'm come back to the front and do another torque. So really the instructions, like if you look up on ATS, they have instructions on how to change your CP3, but I'm just gonna do a double check. You can see I got it set to 77 foot-pounds or pound-feet, whichever you prefer. I'm gonna torque it. All right, so for an update, I got everything, well, almost everything. I'm on my last part now, but I'm just gonna give you an update on what I did. So you remember that fitting I told you you need to switch over? The one underneath the supply line fitting. So make sure you do not forget to tighten that down before you put on this fitting. So I tightened that down. I put the fast fuel system fitting. Then I put the banjo bolt. Can you see that? I put the banjo bolt right there. Next, after that, I came and put that supply line back on from the back of the CP3 to the bottom of the rail. As you can see, I put that electrical connector on. There's a light. Yeah, put that electrical connector on right there. Put a little bit of dielectric grease in it, just a little bit, not too much. Only thing left I have to do is put the front cover back on, the billet cover that I got, and throw the belt on. And I'm gonna give it a start. All right, so everything is hooked back up, everything is tight, the belt's back on. As you can see, got the billet cover on, fuel lines, connections, everything is tight. I'm now going to prime. I'm going to prime the fuel pump, let everything prime back up. CP3 prime up, fuel rail prime up. I'm going to turn the key on and off about 4 to 5 times. probably should go look to see if it's any leaks. Supply line, no leaks. Turn line, no leaks. The bottom of the rail, no leaks. Now I'm gonna turn it off. Give it about 2 seconds. Turn it back on. We go.
No.
There y'all go, man. There goes that CP3 full detail install. I hope y'all really found it useful. I hope this video sets it apart from any other video you watch. If it did, go ahead and leave that thumbs up. If not, let me know. Hey, maybe I'll do better next time, maybe I won't. Oh well. Thank y'all for watching. Y'all have a great night or day.